Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. The city of San Diego took quick action today to remove a Confederate memorial from a downtown park. The plaque in Horton Plaza Park marked the terminus of the so-called Jefferson Davis Highway, named for the president of the Confederacy. A petition to remove the plaque was posted on change.org early this morning. Within hours, the plaque was gone. A hole in the pavement and some safety ropes, the only sign it had ever been there. City Councilman Chris Ward, whose district includes downtown, says he first learned of the plaque's existence last night. He asked city officials to remove it immediately in light of the racist violence last weekend in Charlottesville, Virginia. Ward says history can be remembered in history books.
Public spaces, our civic spaces right now, should reflect the values of the citizenry. And as we are seeing across this country, people do not want to glorify or hold in honor individuals from our history that are frankly shameful and out of line with the values that we have as Americans today.
The city plans to give the plaque to the Daughters of the Confederacy, who supported the original placement. A San Diego spokeswoman for the group says she's disappointed by the removal. What happened today in San Diego is happening at other Confederate memorials around the country. Associated Press reporter Tracy Brown has more on the continuing debate over Confederate symbols.
Aftershocks from deadly violence at a white nationalist rally in Virginia. Under the cover of darkness, symbols of the Confederacy being moved or hidden from view. In Baltimore, a crane removed a monument to Robert E. Lee and Thomas Stonewall Jackson from its pedestal. Working around Alabama state laws that prohibit the removal of Confederate memorials, Birmingham's mayor orders wooden panels to cover up a downtown monument. North Carolina's Durham sheriff is pushing for felony charges against protesters who already toppled a nearly century-old Confederate statue. And in Texas, the mayors of Dallas and Houston both hoping for more measured responses, launching reviews of Confederacy-related statues on public lands.
I think they are dangerous totems in our Dallas society because they divide us versus unite us.
History has its good, history has its bad, but I do think it's important for us to review our inventory and then to make the most appropriate decision.
The National Register of Historic Places does not keep a detailed list of all of the nation's Confederate memorials, but the Southern Poverty Law Center has identified over 1,500 Confederate place names and other symbols in public spaces. President Donald Trump continues to double down, blaming all sides for the recent violence.
You look at both sides. I think there's blame on both sides, and I have no doubt about it.
At the epicenter of this latest wave of unrest, a packed memorial for 32-year-old Heather Heyer, who was killed during the Virginia protest.
If you're not outraged, you're not paying attention, and I want you to pay attention.
The memorial, a short walk away from the street where an Ohio man plowed into a crowd of peaceful protesters on Saturday, killing Heyer and injuring 19. Today on the streets of Charlottesville, a mix of emotions.
We will not go back to days of hatred and bigotry and division. We're not going back.
And fear is coupled with disbelief.
I think all the statues in Charlottesville or other statues, when you go and visit other places, it shows their history and what they've been through and what they've accomplished throughout the years. And I think that it's just stupid to have this big of a riot or this big of a problem over a piece of cement.
More than 150 years after the Civil War ended, the battles are continuing. Tracy Brown, Associated Press.
They're no strangers to activism. Now a group of Encinitas seniors are speaking out again. Back in January, these women marched with walkers and canes through their retirement home. They were showing solidarity with women's marches across the country. Today, in the wake of the violence in Charlottesville, KPBS reporter Susan Murphy tells us they gathered to share their feelings and fears.
I felt absolutely destroyed because I didn't think it could happen in America. I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it.
Lee Zlotnick was one of 36 seniors who attended a discussion at the Seacrest Village retirement community. She was born in Germany and moved to the United States when she was 12, just before the Holocaust. Many of her friends and family did not survive.
They were all wiped out.
So when she saw images of hate groups marching with Nazi signs in Charlottesville, she was overwhelmed.
It's frightening. It's very frightening, and I think that we have to do more and stand up more.
The seniors took turns passing a microphone to share their feelings.
How can we fight this?
And to share ideas on how to combat hate.
The best gift you can give anyone is a smile.
It's deja vu all over again.
Dee Rudolph says she and many of the residents have done a lot of marching through the decades. They've witnessed a lifetime of wars and human rights movements. She says they've come too far to go back.
We already fought the Civil War. We already fought World War II. How many boys died to get rid of anti-Semitism in this way? Nazism, fascism, all of the isms. It has to stop.
She says the group is planning to reignite their efforts to let their voices be heard by writing letters to lawmakers.
We can't just sit by and let things go. We have to take an active part. We have a voice and we have to exercise it.
Susan Murphy, KPBS News.
A San Diego congressman says he's going to help introduce a resolution to censure President Trump's remarks about the violence in Virginia. Yesterday, Trump repeated his contention that there was blame on both sides. Today, Congressman Scott Peters wrote, "There is only one side, the one of respect, justice, and kindness." Peters also said Trump's tone is only dividing us as a country, and that it shouldn't take an act of Congress to let Trump know he's on the wrong side. The resolution will be introduced on Friday. In addition to the censure, it urges him to fire advisors who may cater to the white supremacist movement. President Donald Trump is dissolving 2 business advisory councils he created. Business leaders have been stepping down from those councils in the wake of the president's comments on the Virginia violence. Trump announced the decision on Twitter, saying rather than put pressure on business people on the councils, he's ending them. Earlier this week, the president attacked council members who had stepped down. Negotiators from the U.S., Canada, and Mexico are meeting in Washington to renegotiate NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement. At the same time, civic leaders from San Diego and Tijuana were meeting at the border talking about trade. KPBS reporter Eric Anderson has the story.
Federal negotiators, along with their counterparts from Mexico and Canada, gathered in Washington this morning to talk about the North American Free Trade Agreement. This is the first day of 5 days of talks, the initial session to possibly renegotiate parts of the settlement. President Trump on the campaign trail promised he was going to get rid of NAFTA, but border mayors in this region say that NAFTA is important to the economy here, and they have the numbers to back it up.
Trade between Mexico and the United States moving through San Diego has increased threefold, totaling $60 billion each year. And the second stat was San Diego exports have grown to $5.5 billion under NAFTA.
Canada, Mexico, and the United States need to continue working together, overcome the common challenges and the many opportunities we have as a region. The United States, it's our main trading partner with the 80% of our exports and 50% of our imports. 2 weeks ago, we signed a resolution to encourage the United States and Mexico Congress to recognize the importance of trade between our countries.
Border mayors say that the North American Free Trade Agreement has been an important economic driver in this region and in all 3 of the countries that are parties to the treaty. Negotiators in Washington say that it has forced American jobs out of the country, and that's why they're going after this renegotiation. At the border, Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
Cross-border companies in San Diego and Tijuana are closely watching NAFTA renegotiations. San Diego Regional Chamber of Commerce says trade between the 2 cities totals about $4 billion a year, and renegotiations could reduce that. KPBS Frontiers reporter Jean Guerrero looked at one company with high stakes in the process.
CIR International is a collections firm based in San Diego. This is our Tijuana office.
It expanded into Mexico 4 years ago.
Welcome.
And now has offices on both sides of the border.
Incredible. I mean, a place that, we can get from this office to our office in Tijuana in 20 minutes and you don't have to get on a plane, and et cetera, et cetera.
Founder Felipe Becerra says since the company started hiring Tijuana workers, profits have skyrocketed.
The benefit of being in Tijuana, of course, is, saving money. That is the ultimate goal, because you have great talent. And, because it's a third world country, you pay less.
He says that if NAFTA renegotiations make it too difficult to conduct cross-border business, his company may be forced to close its offices in Tijuana. Alfonso Gonzalez heads that office. He says money saved by employing Mexican workers allowed the company to expand into patent law and offer better jobs in the U.S. as well.
When we create a job opportunity in Tijuana and we have money to invest here, we will give a lot of times, most of the times, a better job opportunity to do something more sophisticated, to do something that requires more skill, and to have a better paid job here.
In other words, he says it's a win-win for both countries. But not all of the federal officials renegotiating NAFTA agree with him, and it remains to be seen how they'll rework the agreement. Jean Guerrero, KPBS News.
Some people are calling it Carmageddon, a plan to shut down the southbound 5 and 805 freeways crossing the U.S.-Mexico border. It's part of the $741 million expansion project underway at the San Ysidro port of entry. Major construction is planned for the weekend of September 23rd, and the freeways will be closed at the 905 for 57 hours. Traffic will be rerouted, but officials say if you can avoid driving into Tijuana that weekend, you should.
And if you absolutely have to drive into Mexico during the 57-hour closure, give yourself time. It's 9 miles out to Otay Mesa. We know that there's limited capacity at a Mexican facility. People should anticipate significant delays going into Mexico that weekend. And so if at all possible, try and avoid it.
The closure will begin at 3 a.m. on September 23rd and last until noon on September 25th. Again, the 5 and 805 will be closed at the 905 freeway. There will be detours to get to homes and businesses between the 905 and the port of entry. Transit will also be available, and the pedestrian entries at San Ysidro will be open. SeaWorld says another one of its killer whales has died. Gazaka was 42 years old and the mother of 4 orcas. Park officials say her health and appetite declined significantly over the past few days, despite continually tailored treatments. Last night, veterinarians euthanized her, they say, to prevent compromising her quality of life. Gazaka is the 3rd orca to die at SeaWorld Park this year. The company has 21 left in the U.S. and is no longer breeding or capturing orcas. More than 22,000 San Diego County property owners haven't paid all their property taxes this year. The Treasurer Tax Collector's Office says it's a slight jump over last year's defaults. Tardy taxpayers are charged a penalty of 1.5% per month. That's on top of the 10% penalty for each unpaid installment. There's a push to give more California children better access to the coast. Advocates say poverty and lack of reliable transportation can be barriers. Today, there was a collaborative effort to push aside those obstacles for more than 24 Imperial Valley students.
Start paddling. So right there. Remember, nice and strong. You can go a little faster than that.
They're learning to paddle,
all right,
balance, and enjoy the San Diego Bay. For some of these Imperial Valley kids, like 10-year-old Addison Clun and friends, this is their first experience with water sports.
I went kayaking with my friend Alex, and we saw a crab, and it was really big. Oh, I see it! There's a crab!
It's day 2 of a camping retreat at Silver Strand State Beach in Coronado, led by Outdoor Outreach.
And what are you hoping to do today?
Kayaking.
Paddleboarding, kayaking.
The nonprofit has teamed up with California State Parks to give these Boys and Girls Club children an unforgettable experience.
We're from the desert, so we don't have opportunities like this.
And watching these kids get out here and paddleboard and kayak, do things that I didn't get to do until I was in my mid-30s, you know, much older, seeing these kids do it at a young age, it really somewhat makes me emotional a little bit. I get excited, I get happy for them to try something new and to see them enjoy what they're doing and just having a good time. It's an amazing feeling.
These 8 to 14-year-olds are from Brawley in Holtville, a more than 2-hour drive from the nearest beach.
Let's give Ben an applause.
State Senator Ben Weso represents the district where 30% of kids live in poverty. He says he wants kids from every California community to have this experience.
To come have access to the coast, for them to have this wonderful opportunity to visit one of the most beautiful coasts in the world in a state that says this coast belongs to everybody.
We hold on to each other to make each other more steady, and these ladies right over here are going to switch spots. Dang, look at that.
Advocates say beyond the fun play, exercise, and a picture with the Imperial Beach Mayor, these kids will go home with a broadened perspective and memories to share.
I'm gonna say it was great. It was amazing. I'll never forget it.
Senator Weso is supporting legislation to give impoverished communities more coastal access via affordable transportation and affordable lodging options. Low clouds and sunshine for San Diego this week. Erin Calandra has more in tonight's forecast.
We're expecting a pretty nice day here in San Diego and the surrounding areas. Taking a look right now at our radar and satellite, nothing is going on. It's going to be pretty quiet. Lots of sunshine out there for everyone. Taking a larger look, well, we are seeing scattered storms and showers in Nevada. Other than that, it is awfully quiet here in the southwest. Temperatures a little below average, but plenty of sunshine and really beautiful weather to be outside. For tonight, 65 degrees. That is the overnight low. Increasing clouds throughout the night. Of course, they're going to break up around lunchtime or so, and then we'll have plenty of sunshine throughout the day. So for tonight in Oceanside, 62 degrees, Poway 59, San Diego 65. As we move inland more, Borrego Springs here 72, and Mount Laguna 54 degrees for our overnight lows. Here we are taking a look at tomorrow, another gorgeous day. Oceanside 76, Poway 83, Ramona 84. In the deserts, of course, we're still in the triple digits, 102, and in Mount Laguna, 74 degrees. Our 5-day forecast, well, it's going to be sunny pretty much for everyone for the next couple of days, but we could see some misty mornings ahead of us, mainly on Sunday into Monday. We could see just a little bit of drizzle here along the coast. Temperatures, though, holding solid in the 70s with plenty of sunshine throughout the day. Inland, we're in the 80s on Saturday, 86 degrees, Sunday 85, so beautiful day to get outside. In the mountains, we're also in the 70s here. Thursday 74, and then Friday we bump it up to 78 degrees with plenty of sunshine. Now in the mountains, also in the deserts, Sunday and Monday, we could see some spotty showers and thunderstorms return. So in the deserts here, Thursday 102 with lots of sun, and we hold it steady in the low 100s all week long. Monday, the coolest day at 100 degrees. For KPBS News, I'm Erin Calandra.
It's an event that links ancient mythology, the world's first computer, and Albert Einstein. Monday's total eclipse of the sun. McGregor Campbell of Oregon Public Broadcasting takes a look at our fascination with eclipses.
Imagine it's 10,000 years ago, and you see a solar eclipse. You're out hunting or planting seeds or whatever, and the sun, the giver of all light and heat, turns black. You'd probably want to figure that out.
It's unlike anything that we ever experience in nature.
This is Tyler Nordgren. He's an astronomer at the University of Redlands in California, and he's an expert on the deep connection that people have had with eclipses.
For human history, these strange, regular occurrences were something that stimulated curiosity.
Different cultures saw different things. In Hindu and Tibetan mythology, the severed head of Rahu swallowed the sun. For the Norse, it was Loki's dogs. And for some Native Americans, it was a great bear walking the Milky Way, biting the sun when it refused to move. But those stories couldn't really tell us when the next eclipse would happen. For that, we'd need some new ideas.
We're now into an interpretation of the world in which it's natural occurrences, natural forces.
Civilizations began to notice patterns. Solar and lunar eclipses happen about 2 weeks apart and could only happen during certain times of year. By around 2,000 years ago, Chinese and Greek astronomers were able to predict at least some eclipses. And here's something crazy. The Greeks even invented this thing. It was basically the world's first computer, 1,000 years ahead of its time. What did it do? Among other things, it computed eclipses. In the following centuries, math and science bloomed. We learned how to calculate the moon's orbit, which finally told us when and where an eclipse would happen. We could plan for them and go see them, and even use them to help make the universe make sense.
Once you realize that eclipses are a physical phenomenon, then you can begin to finally answer some questions about the world in which we live.
After an eclipse over Athens in 478 BC, a Greek philosopher asked sailors where they were when they saw it. He was able to figure out a rough estimate for the moon's actual size. It was the first time that anyone on Earth knew how big something was in space. In 1868, thanks to a solar eclipse, we discovered a new chemical element on the sun, decades before we found it on Earth. Then, an eclipse in 1919 changed kind of everything. A German physicist had this new idea. Massive objects bend space and time, and we perceive that bending as gravity. It seemed crazy, but
there was actually a way to test it.
If you could measure the positions of the stars without the sun, and then again when the sun was in front of them, you could see whether or not the sun bent space the way Einstein predicted. In 1919, an eclipse gave astronomers the perfect chance to see if Einstein was right. And the stars were exactly where Einstein said they should be. It made him a legend and confirmed one of our best theories of why the universe is the way it is. Nowadays, we know where the moon's shadow will be on April 26th in the year 3000. It may seem like modern science has taken away whatever magic eclipses may have had for our ancestors, but Nordgren says the opposite is true.
The first time I saw this myself, the hair stood up on the back of my neck, and I understood the difference between knowing and feeling.
Eclipses link us to our past and to the universe. They're proof that with a bit of ingenuity, we can take something that used to terrify us and turn it into something amazing.
There's a big change in San Francisco's famous skyline. Construction workers there are putting the finishing touches on a 1,070-foot high-rise. Associated Press reporter Haven Daly says the new tower pits the technology industry against the city's charming neighborhoods.
The San Francisco skyline has been taken to new heights.
It's a very tall building. It's a very iconic building.
A 61-story skyscraper that juts out above everything else.
It's very noticeable. Every time you go into the city from the Bay Bridge, you can always notice it from afar.
At 1,070 feet, the $1.1 billion Salesforce office tower is nearing completion. After a long elevator ride and an even longer climb up the final flights of open-air stairs, the Associated Press got a rare glimpse at the very top of the structure. Up here, the iconic Transamerica Tower, what had been the city's tallest building for decades, is dwarfed in comparison. The changing skyline drawing mixed reviews.
A lot of people think of San Francisco that the defining characteristics are the hills and the water and the blue sky and the quality of the light. And so architecture and big buildings to them almost smack of Manhattanization. That a tall building, a skyscraper, that's something that should be in New York or Chicago or some city like that.
San Francisco still has strict building limitations, but Salesforce Tower is part of the Transit Center District Plan to create a new downtown hub. Most of the new building will house the business cloud computing company Salesforce, with a few other tech companies planning to move in as well. About 6,000 people are expected to work here every day.
I know there's a lot of people that complain about the change in the skyline, but there's a constant influx of new residents and new companies coming into San Francisco, and I think the only way to accommodate that growth is to grow taller.
I think this is the discussion that we're going to have in the next decade to keep the city the way it is and as beautiful and and accessible as it is.
The building will also have a 9-story high electronic art exhibit at the top, which will display scenes from the city and nearby surroundings.
For example, you know, the clouds, waves, birds.
I've heard that they're going to put a big electronic display up there, and that's a little cheesy to me.
I think once we actually turn on the lights for the public art, all that will change. I think everybody will love the tower.
Love it or hate it, the debate over the changing skyline won't end when construction wraps up this fall and the Salesforce Tower officially opens next year. Haven Daily, Associated Press, San Francisco.
Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, crying over spilt milk. Some South Bay parents upset over chocolate milk returning to school cafeterias. And on Midday Edition, the Tough Talk. A local psychologist explains how parents can tell their kids about the violence in Charlottesville. That's tomorrow at noon on KPBS Radio. Tonight's stories are online at kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.